In April 2010, two students from Bright College left their dorm for what was supposed to be a normal Friday night out with friends, but they were never seen again. Years went by with no clues, no bodies, and no sense of closure. Just a painful emptiness where two lively young women should have been. Then, 6 years later, someone saw a startling detail in a Google Street View picture from their town, which started a series of shocking discoveries no one could have predicted. The phone rang at 7:43 in the morning, waking Mark from a troubled sleep. He reached for his cell phone on the nightstand, squinting at the number he didn't recognize. "Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is Detective Rodriguez with Aurora County Police. I need you to come to the station right away. We've found something about your daughter's case." Mark's heart pounded in his chest. 6 years. 6 years of sleepless nights, of jumping every time the phone rang, of looking through crowds for a familiar face he never saw. "What did you find? Is it Sarah? Is she, Mr. Thompson? I'd rather talk about this in person. Can you come to the station? Tell me if she's alive or dead." The words felt rough in his throat. "Sir, we found remains in the Aurora Alley sewer system, but I need you to understand." Rodriguez stopped, and Mark could hear the sound of papers moving. "The remains we found belonged to May Shin, your daughter's roommate." Mark's legs felt weak. He sat down on the edge of his bed, holding the phone with a tight grip. May, not Sarah. The relief he felt was quickly followed by a heavy feeling of guilt. May was someone else's daughter too. How? Citizen reported some suspicious Google Street View images from the area. They saw a man at a car trunk with what looked like white material inside. When we checked the location, we found the remains in the sewer system preserved in plastic wrap. Mark's head was spinning. Google Street View. After 6 years, a random picture from a mapping car had cracked the case open. The man in the photo, do you know who he is? We're working on making the image clearer. The person who reported it said something about the man's posture looking strange, like he was having trouble with something heavy in the trunk. We're checking when the Street View car went through that area. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come. We're reopening the whole case with a new sense of urgency, and we'll need to talk to everyone from 2010 again. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Mark put on the clothes he wore yesterday, his hands shaking as he picked up his keys. The 15-minute drive to the police station felt like a blur of red lights he hardly saw. Atissa's mind kept going back to that Friday night 6 years ago, April 9th, 2010. The girls had gone to Chrome, a popular college club. Sarah had texted him at 10:47 p.m., out with May. "Don't wait up, Dad. Love you." It was the last message he ever got from her. The bright lights of the police station felt too harsh as Mark walked in. Detective Rodriguez met him in the waiting area. She was a woman in her 40s with serious eyes and some gray streaks in her black hair. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming. Please follow me." She took him to a small meeting room where bags of evidence were on the table. Mark's stomach felt sick when he saw a dirty student ID card in one of them. Even through the plastic and dirt, he recognized May Chin's bright smile in the photo. "This was found with the body," Rodriguez said softly. "Being wrapped in plastic. Helped keep some evidence safe. We're running DNA tests now." "Their dorm room," Mark said suddenly. "When we went there after they went missing, everything was just as they had left it." Sarah's economics book was still open on her desk. Chapter 12. I remember because she had highlighted almost every sentence. May's coffee cup was half full on her nightstand. It still had lipstick marks on the edge. Rodriguez nodded, writing things down. Those details were in the original file. We took pictures of everything. 2 20-year-old women don't just disappear without taking anything. No clothes, no money from their bank accounts, no phone activity after that night. The Street View picture. Can I see it? Rodriguez showed him a printed copy. The picture was blurry, showing a man in dark clothes bent over an open car trunk. You could only see his back and the side of his face, but white plastic was easy to see inside the trunk. The timestamp said June 15, 2010, just 2 months after the girls disappeared. We're having techs make this clearer, checking traffic cameras from the area. Anything that might give us a better picture or a license plate. The fact that he was moving May's body suggests Sarah might still be alive somewhere. Mark finished. That's what you're thinking. We can't jump to conclusions, but yes, it's a possibility we are looking into. A knock on the door interrupted them. An officer leaned in. Detective, the Chens are here. Mark's chest felt tight. Through the window of the meeting room, he saw May's parents in the waiting area. Mrs. Chen held her husband's arm, her face a mask of sadness. Mr. Chen stared at nothing, looking like he had aged 20 years in one morning. I should, Mark stood up. Take your time, Rodriguez said. Mark walked to the waiting area on shaky legs. When Mrs. Chen saw him, she made a sound that was half a cry, half a sob. He opened his arms, and she fell against him, her small body shaking with sadness. My baby, she whispered in English with an accent. My baby girl. Mr. Chen joined the hug, and the three parents stood there, connected by a shared loss. Mark held them while guilt ate at him from the inside. He was thankful, disgustingly, selfishly thankful that it wasn't Sarah's body in that sewer. That he still had hope, while the Chens only had a terrible certainty. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Detective Rodriguez gave them some time before gently separating them. We're going to find who did this, she promised the Chuns. And Mr. Thompson, we're not giving up on finding Sarah. This discovery changes everything. Whoever took them made a mistake, and that Google footage is going to help us find him. Mark nodded. But as he looked at the Chens' heartbroken faces, he wondered if finding out the truth would bring any real peace to any of them. Mark couldn't. Go home. Not yet. Instead, he found himself driving toward the university, pulled by a strange need to go over his daughter's last known steps. The campus looked just the same, but also completely different. Exit hall, Sarah's old dorm, still stood like a brick building full of his memories. Mark parked and walked through the main entrance, the familiar smell of strong cleaner and microwave popcorn hitting him right away. The same bulletin boards were on the walls, their cork full of colorful flyers. But instead of announcements, from 2010 for the spring dance and an economic study group, he now saw Pride Week 2016 and Climate Action Committee. The carpet was the same, worn out in the middle from the steps of thousands of students. The dark red pattern was faded, but he knew it well. A group of girls ran past him, laughing about someone's Instagram story. They looked so young and without a care, just like Sarah and May had been. Mark went up to the third floor, to room 312. He stood outside what had been their room, listening to the quiet sounds of the students living there now. Music he didn't know, voices talking about a chemistry test. These students had no idea that 2 girls had disappeared from this very room, leaving behind lives that were stopped in the middle of a sentence. Leaving the dorm, Mark drove the familiar way to Chrome nightclub, or what used to be Chrome. The neon sign was gone, replaced by a for-lease sign faded by the sun. The windows were covered with brown paper, its edges curled from time and weather. He parked and walked around the building, taking pictures with his phone. The businesses around it told their own story of how time had passed. The Subway shop was now a vegan cafe. The 24-hour copy place had become a phone repair store. But some things were still the same. Crossroads Bar was still on the corner, its brick front and green awning the same. Murphy's Pub, another student spot from 2010, was boarded up. The Velvet Room, once known for not checking IDs carefully, had been turned into a yoga studio. Mark took a picture of each storefront, remembering how the police had gone to every single place in 2010. Detective Morrison, the one before Rodriguez, had personally talked to every worker and collected every piece of security video. Crossroads Bar had been checked too, Mark remembered. The owner at the time had insisted that no one saw the girls that night. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't know. Local news is setting up at Aurora Alley. Thought you should. No. A friend. Mark drove toward Aurora Alley, his chest feeling tight as he got closer. As expected, 3 news vans had parked along the street. Reporters were setting up cameras, trying to get shots of the sewer grate where May had been found. By that night, her face would be on every local TV channel. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe someone would remember something they had forgotten, or had been too scared to say 6 years ago. At home, Mark opened his laptop and went on Facebook. The Find Sarah and May page, which he had made 2 weeks after they disappeared, had 47 new notifications. His hands shook as he clicked through them. The news was out. May's discovery was all over the page. Over 200 new comments had shown up. Since the morning, just heard about May. Praying Sarah comes home safe. I remember them from Psych 101. This is so sad. Whoever did this is a monster. Hope they catch him. Old classmates were sharing the news story and adding their own. Memories? Sarah's freshman roommate posted a photo Mark had never seen before. Sarah and May laughing at a dorm party. Red plastic cups in their hands, so young and full of life it made his chest hurt. Then he saw the message notification. Petite Garrison. The name didn't sound familiar. Mark clicked open the private message. Miss Thompson, I saw the news about May Chen. I'm so sad. I own Crossroads Bar on University Avenue. I know police talked to us back in 2010, but I recently talked to a former bartender who worked that night. He mentioned something about serving 2 Asian girls who looked like Sarah and May. He didn't think it was important at the time, but after seeing today's news, I felt I had to contact you. Would you be willing to meet? I'd rather talk about this with you before calling the police, as I want to make sure the information is right. I'm at the bar now, if you can come. Mark stared at the message. After 6 years of nothing, a witness suddenly appears. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he typed back, I can be there within the hour. Pete answered right away. Thank you. I feel terrible this information didn't come out sooner. The bartender only mentioned it recently during a casual phone call. We were just catching up, and somehow that night came up. I'll explain everything. When you get here? Mark leaned back, a feeling of unease creeping up his back. Police had questioned everyone at Crossroads in 2010. The owner at that time, was it the same person? Had been sure that no one saw the girls. Why would a bartender suddenly remember serving them 6 years later? And why contact him instead of going straight to the police? Still, any clue was better than the nothing he had lived with for 6 years. Mark grabbed his keys, feeling both hope and suspicion as he went to the door. Crossroads Bar sat on the corner, like it had for many years. Its green awning faded, but still there. Mark pushed through the heavy wooden door, his eyes getting used to the dark inside. The place was empty except for a man behind the bar, who was probably Pete Garrison. Mr. Thompson. The man looked to be in his early 50s, with a heavy build, thinning hair, and a practiced smile. I'm Pete. Thank you for coming so fast. Mark walked to the bar, looking at the typical college bar setting. Worn-out bar stools, sports pictures on the walls, and the old smell of stale beer and fried food. Can I get you something? A beer? Coffee? Pete was already getting a pint glass. Just water, thanks. I want to hear about this bartender. Pete filled the pint glass with beer anyway, and slid it across the bar. You look like you need it. A hell of a day for you, I'm sure. As a father myself, I can't imagine what you're going through. He stopped, leaning forward. The news said they found Mei Chen's body. Were you there when they found it? I mean, what kind of evidence was with the body? Mark frowned at the beer, but took a sip without thinking. The police didn't share many details. Of course. Pete nodded quickly. But they must have found something, right? DNA evidence. The news mentioned something about Google Street View footage. Did they show you that? Why do you need to know about evidence? Mark put the glass down harder than he meant to. Pete held up his hands. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand the situation. Where exactly did they find her? The news just said Aurora Alley, but that's a long street. And the condition of the body. Was it in good shape? I mean, after 6 years, Mark's feeling of unease got stronger. Let's talk about your bartender, the one who remembers serving Sarah and May, right? Yes. Pete wiped down the bar, which was already clean. Tommy Chen. A different Chen, no relation to your daughter's friend. A good kid, worked here for about 3 years. We were catching up last week, and somehow that night came up. Where is Tommy now? I'd like to talk to him myself. Pete's smile wobbled. He moved out west, Colorado, I think. The Denver area. You? Think, well, it might have been Arizona, Phoenix, or Tucson. We lost touch after he moved. Mark stared at him. You just talked to him last week, but you're not sure what state he lives in. It was a quick call. Look, I have his old work papers somewhere. Let me check the office. Pete pointed vaguely toward the back. Make yourself comfortable. I'll just be a minute. As Pete went through a door behind the bar, Mark stood up and looked around the room more carefully. The layout was normal. A main bar area, a few booth tables, bathrooms down a hallway. But what he noticed was a heavy door marked storage. Employees only near the bathroom hallway. Unlike the other doors, this one had an electronic keypad lock, its small red light glowing in the dark bar. Mark walked closer, pretending to go to the bathroom. The door was made of strong steel, painted to match the walls, but it was clearly newer than the walls around it. Why would a bar storage room need that much security? Beer kegs and liquor didn't need an electronic lock. He shook his head. He was being paranoid. The news about May, the stress of the day, it was making him see bad things everywhere. Lots of businesses had upgraded their security. Found something. Pete's voice made Mark jump. The bar owner came out with a piece of notebook paper. Tommy made notes about that night. He was always very detailed. Mark went back to the bar and took the handwritten page. His eyes got wide as he read, April 9th, 2010. 2 Asian girls. Early 20s. One wearing a white skirt with a pink top ordered a vodka cranberry. The other, in jeans and a blue sweater, ordered a rum and coke. Mentioned coming from Chrome. Left around 1:30 a.m. This is very specific for something he just remembered recently. Mark said slowly. Like I said, Tommy had a great memory. Pete's eyes kept looking up toward the corner of the room. Mark followed his look to a security camera pointed at the entrance. These details, what they were wearing, what they ordered. Your bartender remembered all this from a casual talk 6 years later. Pete moved uncomfortably. Some people just have minds for that kind of thing. I should take this to Detective Rodriguez right away. Mark folded the paper. Wait. Pete's hand shot out, not quite touching Mark, but hovering near his arm. I mean, shouldn't we check everything first? Make sure the details are right. I might have more records in my files at home. Work schedules, maybe even old security video backed up somewhere. Security video from 2010. We upgraded our systems a few years back, but I never threw out the old hard drives. I'll hunt you. Come back tomorrow. Give me time to look through everything. We want to be sure before we get the police involved, right? Mark looked at Pete's face. Sweat was on the man's forehead even though the bar was cool. The way he wanted to delay calling the police set off every alarm in Mark's head. "I appreciate your help," Mark said carefully, putting the note in his pocket. "I'll think about it." Pete's smile looked fake. "Of course, take your time. I just want to help however I can, as a father myself." "You mentioned that?" Mark walked to the door. "I'll be in touch." As he left, he could feel Pete's eyes watching him. In his car, Mark took out his phone and found Detective Rodriguez's number. Something was very wrong with Pete Garrison, and the detective needed to know. Mark pulled out of the parking lot of Crossroads Bar, but he only drove half a block before stopping. His hands were shaking as he found Detective Rodriguez's number on his phone. "Rodriguez, Detective, it's Mark. Thompson. I just met with Pete Garrison, the owner of Crossroads Bar. Something's very wrong." "Slow down, Mr. Thompson. Tell me what happened." Mark kept his eyes on the bar's entrance in his rearview mirror as he talked. "He contacted me on Facebook. Said a former bartender remembered serving the girls that night. But he was obsessed with what evidence you found. He kept asking about DNA, where exactly May's body was found, how well it was preserved. Go on." When I asked for the bartender's contact information, he couldn't keep his story straight. First, the guy was in Colorado, then Arizona. And he had this handwritten note with incredibly specific details about what the girls wore, what they drank. Things nobody would remember from a casual phone call 6 years later. "Where are you now?" "Parked down the street from the bar." "Detective, when I mentioned bringing the information to you, he panicked and insisted we needed to check the details first. He wants me to come back tomorrow. Stay where you are. Don't go near him again. We'll look into Pete Garrison right away. There's something else. The bar has this reinforced door with an electronic lock that leads to what he says is just storage." It seemed like too much for Mark stopped in the middle of his sentence. Pete had come out of the bar's front door. Even from a distance, Mark could see the man's worried movements. Pete looked up and down the street, his head turning nervously. Then he rushed toward the alley that ran next to the building. "Jess?" "Came outside," Mark whispered, even though there was no way Pete could hear him. "He's going into the alley. Mr. Thompson, do not follow him. We'll send? I'm just going to drive by. I won't stop." Mark hung up before Rodriguez could argue. He started his car and drove slowly past the entrance to the alley. Pete was at a back service door, fumbling with his keys. He kept looking over his shoulder, his movements jerky and desperate. Mark drove around the block and passed by again. This time, Pete was dragging something from the service door, industrial cleaning supplies. Mark's stomach tightened as he recognized them: a large bottle of bleach, a box of heavy-duty trash bags, and what looked like a commercial carpet cleaner, the kind used by professional cleaning companies. Pete's frantic energy was obvious. He lifted the supplies toward a basement access door, different from the main service entrance. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and he kept stopping to look down the alley as if he was expecting someone to show up at any moment. Mark made himself keep driving. Every instinct told him to stop, to face Pete, to demand answers about Sarah. But Rodriguez was right. He needed to let the police handle this. He had seen enough to know that Pete was hiding something terrible. The drive home took 15 minutes, but felt like hours. Mark's mind raced with different ideas, each one more awful than the last. Pete's questions about the evidence, his desperation to delay the police, the industrial cleaning supplies. It all pointed to someone trying to get rid of evidence. Mark pulled into his driveway and noticed right away that something was wrong. His front door was slightly open, a gap of maybe 2 inches. He always locked it and had double-checked it that morning before he left for the police station. With his heart pounding, Mark walked up slowly. The door pushed open when he touched. Muddy footprints led from the entrance through his living room, clear against the beige carpet. The prints went straight to the hallway that led to the bedrooms. "Hello?" Mark called out, but the house felt empty. He followed the footprints to Sarah's room. The door was open. Inside, everything looked normal except for one thing that was obviously missing. Sarah's missing person flyer, which had been on the wall for 6 years, was gone. Torn pieces of it were stuck to the tape marks on the wall. Mark's legs felt weak. Someone had been in his house. Someone had come specifically for Sarah's room, for her poster. His phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez. "Patrol car heading to Crossroads now. Where are you?" Mark typed with shaking fingers. "Home." Someone broke in. They took Sarah's missing poster. His phone rang right away. Rodriguez's voice was tight and urgent. "Get out of the house now. Go to your car and lock the doors. Police are on the way." Mark backed out of Sarah's room, his eyes looking for any movement, any sign that he wasn't alone. The safe space of his home suddenly felt like a trap, and he knew with a cold certainty that Pete Garrison was connected to all of this. Mark was sitting in his car outside his house, waiting for the police when his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. His finger paused over the screen before he opened the message. The picture hit him like a punch. Sarah's college ID card, the one she had been so proud of as a freshman. Her 18-year-old face smiled up at him, frozen in time. But it wasn't the ID that made his blood run cold. It was the black-gloved hand holding it against a concrete wall. The text with it read, "Come to Crossroads Bar Basement alone in 20 minutes if you want answers about your daughter." No police or she disappears forever. Mark's vision went blurry. Sarah, after 6 years of nothing, of empty hope and deep sadness. Someone was holding out proof that she existed like bait. His hands shook as he zoomed in on the photo. The ID looked real, worn around the edges from use. The concrete wall behind it could be anywhere, but he knew. He knew it was Pete Garrison. Holding that card. This monster had his daughter all this time. His phone rang. "Detective Rodriguez." Mark stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the answer button. If he told her about the text, she would stop him from going. Police would swarm the bar. And if Pete was watching somehow, if he had cameras, if he saw the police coming, she disappears forever. Mark rejected the call and opened a new message to Rodriguez. He typed, "Pete Garrison has Sarah. He just sent proof. I'm going to Crossroads Bar Basement." His thumb moved to send, then stopped. What if Pete could see his phone somehow? What if sending this message meant Sarah's death? He deleted the unsent message. Every instinct told him he was walking into a trap, but Sarah might be alive. After 6 years, his little girl might be waiting in that basement. And he couldn't risk her life by doing the smart thing. Mark drove back toward Crossroads Bar, his mind racing with different ideas. 20 minutes. Pete had given him 20 minutes, which meant he was watching, knew where Mark was. The break-in at his house. Pete must have done it while Mark was calling. Rodriguez. He parked behind the building as he was told. The alley was darker now, as the sun had set while he waited for the police at his house. A single light bulb cast a weak yellow light over a basement entrance he hadn't seen before, different from the service door Pete had used earlier. Mark got out of his car, his legs shaky. The alley was empty and strangely quiet. He walked to the basement door, which was slightly open. "Down here." Pete's voice came from below. Mark went down a narrow set of concrete stairs, the air getting colder with each step. At the bottom, Pete was waiting with a pistol pointed at Mark's chest. The friendly bar owner act was gone, replaced by someone Mark didn't recognize. His face was red, his eyes wild, and sweat stained his shirt. "You couldn't leave it alone," Pete said. 6 years of nothing and then that damn Google car. And now you asking questions? Calling cops. Where is she? Mark's voice came out rough. Move. Pete pointed with the gun toward a doorway. The basement was nothing like Mark had imagined. Instead of a simple storage room, hallways went off in different directions. They passed a large industrial freezer, its motor humming. More doorways led to rooms Mark couldn't see into. The space seemed to go far beyond the size of the bar, maybe connecting to the buildings next to it. You know they're already looking for me, Pete said as they walked. That detective called the bar, asked about employee records. You ruined everything. 6 quiet years, and you had to ruin it. They stopped at a reinforced door with locks on the outside, deadbolts that could only be opened from the outside. Pete fumbled with keys while keeping the gun on Mark. Is she here? Is Sarah here? Pete's smile was cold. You want to see what your meddling caused? What's going to end because of you? The door swung open to show a small concrete room. Legs almost gave out at what he saw. A narrow bed with a thin mattress. Women's clothes folded on a makeshift shelf. A bucket in the corner, and on the wall, scratches in the concrete. Hundreds of them in groups of 7. Calendar marks. Someone had been counting days in this underground jail. Sarah. Mark lunged forward, but the room was empty. Pete shoved him inside. She was here for a long time, but you've made things complicated. Mark spun around. Where is she? What did you do to her? The same thing I'm going to do to you. Pete aimed the gun at Mark's head. You're going to disappear just like your daughter. Only this time, there won't be any Google car to accidentally catch me. Nobody turning up in a sewer. Mark stared at the scratches on the wall, trying to count them, trying to figure out how many days of Sarah's life they stood for. The neat groups of 7 blurred together, weeks turning into months, turning into years in this concrete tomb. Please, Mark said, his voice breaking. Just tell me if she's alive. Pete's finger moved to the trigger. A sharp knocking sound came from above, 3 strong raps that made Pete freeze in the middle of his action. His eyes darted to the wall, where Mark now saw a set of security monitors he had missed in his fear. Police, Mr. Garrison, we need to speak with you. Pete's face twisted with anger and panic. The monitors showed several different views, too. Uniformed officers at the bar's front door, the main barroom, the alley where Mark's car was visible, and even the street. Pete had been watching everything. The screens cast a strange blue light in the dark basement, showing that the officers' body cameras were on. Their police car clearly visible in the picture. Pete grabbed Mark's collar, pressing the gun to his temple. Not one sound. You make any noise, she dies. Understand? Sarah dies. Mark nodded, his heart pounding. Sarah Pete had just confirmed she was alive. I'll be right there. Pete called up the stairs, his voice changing to sound unnaturally. Calm. The change was chilling. He pushed Mark deeper into the room and pointed at the floor. Sit. Don't move. If I hear anything, I'll kill her before they can stop me. Pete's footsteps pounded up the stairs. Mark strained to hear the conversation. Above, pressing his ear to the concrete ceiling. The distant sound of a door opening. Then Pete's voice, muffled but possible to hear. Officers, sorry, we're closed. I was just down in the basement doing inventory. Mr. Garrison, we're looking for Mark Thompson. His car was seen in this area. Thompson, the father of that missing girl. Haven't seen him since earlier today. He left around 4 o'clock. Seemed upset about something. Mark looked frantically around the room. He had to make a noise. He had to let them know. A metal shelving unit stood against one wall, loaded with boxes. Mark crawled to it and pushed with all his might. The shelf fell over with a crash that sounded huge to Mark, but barely made a sound in the thick-walled space. The concrete soaked up the sound like a tomb. He grabbed a metal box and banged it against the floor, against the walls, screaming, "Help! I'm down here." Nothing. The basement was too deep, the walls too thick. Pete's voice went on above, smooth and practiced. "You're welcome to look around if you want, but like I said, he's not here." "Is he in some kind of trouble?" "No, sir. Just want to make sure he's safe." "You said he seemed upset." "Yeah, asking about old employee records. Something about that poor girl they found." "May, tragic situation." "He seemed really shaken up." "About it, kept asking strange questions." "To be honest, officers, I was a bit worried about his mental state." Mark pounded on the door until his fists were bleeding, leaving smears on the metal. He screamed until his throat was raw. The conversation upstairs went on for several painful minutes. He could hear footsteps moving around. The officers were walking through the bar, checking. His hope shot up, then crashed as he heard the worst sound he could imagine: the front door closing. Pete's footsteps on the stairs were slow and deliberate. Each step sounded like a countdown. When he appeared in the doorway, his face was red with anger and something else, fear. Sweat had soaked through his shirt and his hands were shaking a little. "Your cop friends just signed your death warrant." Pete grabbed Mark's arm, dragging him from the room. "Come on, time to see the grand tour before you die." They moved deeper into the basement maze. Mark's horror grew with each room they passed. A stained mattress in one corner, chains bolted to the walls with signs of heavy use. Video equipment? Cameras on tripods, professional lights, monitors showing different views of a concrete room. The setup made Mark's stomach turn. Quite the operation, right? Pete's voice was wild now, high-pitched and unstable. 6 years of careful work. Would have been 6 more if you hadn't. "Is Sarah here?" Mark's voice cracked. "Is my daughter here? Please, I just need to know." Pete smiled coldly. "You want to know what happened to your precious daughter? You want to know everything." They stopped at the industrial freezer Mark had seen earlier. Pete yanked open the heavy door, showing the empty inside. The smell of bleach was very strong. "This is where I kept your daughter's friend. 2 years in here before I had to move. Her construction starting next door. Workers getting too close. Had to dump her quick." Pete laughed a bitter laugh. "And wouldn't you know it, a Google Street View car drives by at exactly the wrong moment. All my careful planning ruined by a mapping car." "Sarah," Mark pleaded, "just tell me. You're going to end up exactly like May in this freezer, and no one will ever find you because I learned from my mistakes." Suddenly, shouting broke out. From above, many voices, boots pounding on stairs. The monitors on the wall showed police cars surrounding the building, officers at every exit. "Police, Pete Garrison. We know Mark Thompson is here." Pete's face went white. He spun toward the monitors. Mark's car was surrounded by police cars. Officers in tactical gear were at every entrance. Rodriguez appeared on one screen, talking into her radio. Later, Mark would find out that Rodriguez had become suspicious when he didn't answer his phone after their last talk. When police saw his car in the alley and found his phone inside, they had come back with more force. Pete grabbed Mark, spinning him around as a human shield. The gun was pressed against Mark's head as officers poured into the basement, guns drawn. The narrow hallways filled with shouts, flashlight beams cutting through the dark space. "Back off," Pete screamed. "I'll kill him!" Detective Rodriguez led the team, her gun aimed at Pete. Behind her, at least 6 officers had their guns out. "It's over, Garrison. We've got the building surrounded. There's no way out. Then he dies with me." "Think about it," Rodriguez said calmly, though Mark could see the tension in her shoulders. "You shoot him, we shoot you. You die herein. This basement Is that what you want? Or do you want to live, to have your story heard? You don't understand. Pete's voice was breaking now. You don't understand what I've built here. Help us understand. Put the gun down and tell us everything. Mark felt Pete's grip weaken. The gun trembled against his temple. He could smell Pete's sweat, feel the man's fast breathing. There's no good ending here for you if you pull that trigger, Rodriguez went on, taking a small step forward. But if you put the gun down, you live. You get a lawyer. You get to speak your piece. Maybe even cut a deal. A deal. Pete's voice showed a spark of interest. Depends on what you tell us, but dead men can't make deals, Pete. You don't understand what he cost me? Pete's voice cracked. 6 years, 6 perfect years, and he ruined it. We can talk about that. But first, the gun. For a long moment, nobody moved. The basement was silent except for the hum of the freezer and Pete's rough breathing. Mark could see officers positioned at every angle, red dots from laser sights dancing on the walls. Then Pete's grip loosened a little, the gun dropping an inch. It was enough. In that split second of distraction, an officer from the side fired. A taser. Pete convulsed, the gun clattering away as he collapsed. Officers swarmed him, taking the weapon and cuffing him as he twisted on the floor. "Bastards!" Pete screamed. "You don't know what you've done. She'll die without me. She needs her medicine. She needs Mark." Rodriguez helped him up. "Are you hurt?" "Sarah," Mark gasped, his legs barely holding him up. "He has Sarah. She's here somewhere." Rodriguez yelled orders. "Search every room. Check every door. We're looking for Sarah Thompson, white female, 26 years old." Officers spread through the basement like a wave. Mark stumbled after them, his heart racing. They were systematic, checking each room, calling out clear as they moved. The basement seemed to go on forever, a maze of concrete and horror. "Locked door here." An officer shouted from down a hallway. "Heavy reinforcement, multiple external locks." They all went to the location. The door was steel with 3 deadbolts that could only be opened from the outside. Scratch marks were on the inside of the door, as if someone had clawed at it. "Get the ram," Rodriguez ordered. 2 officers brought up a battering ram. It took 4 hits before the door burst open. The smell hit them first. An unwashed body, human waste, sadness. "Oh my God," someone whispered. In the corner on a filthy mattress was a figure that made Mark's knees buckle. The woman was extremely thin, her hair matted and long, wearing a stained nightgown that hung on her thin frame. She pushed herself against the wall, her eyes unfocused and glassy, flinching hard as officers got closer. "No, please," she whispered. "I'll be good. I'll be quiet. Please don't." "Everyone back," Rodriguez commanded softly. "Give her space, Mark." Mark pushed past the officers, his vision blurring with tears. This couldn't be Sarah. This broken person couldn't be his lively daughter. "Sarah, baby, it's Dad." She stared through him, no sign of recognition in her empty eyes. Her arms were covered in bruises. Some new, some faded to yellow. Her cheekbones stuck out sharply from her face. "Sonny," he tried desperately, using her childhood nickname, the one only family knew. "Sonny, it's Daddy. I'm here to take you home." Something flickered in her eyes. Her head tilted a little, like a bird hearing a sound from far away. "Daddy." The word was barely a whisper, unsure, like she was trying out a new language. But he said you stopped looking. He said the world. He lied, baby. I never stopped looking. Never. Sarah began to shake, then sobbed. Horrible, broken sounds that didn't seem human. Mark gathered her thin frame in his arms as paramedics rushed in. She weighed almost nothing, her bones sharp through her thin skin. "Is this real?" she kept asking. "Is this real?" He said, "I was dreaming when I saw the sun." "It's real, Sonny. You're safe now. You're safe." The paramedics worked quickly but gently, starting an IV, checking her vitals. Sarah flinched at every touch, saying sorry over and over. "I'm sorry. I'll be good. Please don't tell him I was." "Bad Pete's been arrested," Rodriguez told her firmly. "He's in handcuffs. He can never hurt you again." As they got ready to move Sarah to a stretcher, she gripped Mark's hand with surprising strength. "Hush. There were others," she whispered. "Before. Me, he showed me videos, said I'd end up like them if I wasn't good." Rodriguez's face darkened. She stepped away to speak into her radio, ordering teams to tear the basement apart, to check every wall for hidden rooms. As the paramedics carried Sarah up the stairs, she saw sunlight through the bar windows and started crying again. "Son," she whispered, "I thought I'd never—" He said it was gone. Said there was war, nuclear winter. "Just lies," Mark said, walking next to the stretcher. "All lies." Outside, the alley was full of emergency vehicles. News vans were already showing up, kept back by police tape. Pete was in the back of a police car, and as they passed, Sarah saw him and became stiff with terror. "No, no, please. I was good. I didn't tell them anything. He can't hurt you," Mark said firmly, blocking her view. "Look at me, Sonny. Just look at me." As the ambulance doors closed, Mark caught a glimpse of Pete in the police car. The man who had held his daughter prisoner for 6 years looked small, pathetic, his face twisted with anger as his perfect world fell apart. The ambulance pulled away, taking Sarah toward her first taste of freedom in 6 years. Toward a long road of healing that would start with the simple act of seeing the sun and knowing it was real. The bright lights of the hospital hummed above. As Mark sat next to Sarah's bed, watching nurses check her 4 lines. She had been given medicine to make her sleep for the checkup, her thin frame barely making a shape under the white blankets. Every few minutes, even in her drugged sleep, she would flinch or make a small sound. Detective Rodriguez appeared. In the doorway, her face grim. "Mark, can we talk?" "The doctor said she'll be out for a while." Mark reluctantly followed her to a small meeting room down the hall. Rodriguez closed the door and sat across from him, opening a file. "Pete Garrison has confessed," she said without any introduction. "Our questioning team worked on him for hours. He finally broke when we offered to recommend a lighter sentence if he told us everything about both girls." Mark's hands clenched. "What did he say?" Rodriguez looked at her notes. "He admitted to targeting drunk college girls at his bar. It was a pattern going back years." On April 9, 2010, he saw Sarah leaving Chrome nightclub alone. She was very drunk, stumbling. He went up to her outside, told her that her friend was sick in the parking lot and needed help. "She would have gone," Mark said quietly. "She would have wanted to help May." When they got to his van, May showed up. She had apparently been looking for Sarah. May knew right away something was wrong. She told Pete that Sarah was too drunk, that she needed to come with her. She tried to pull Sarah away. Rodriguez paused, her jaw tight. That's when Pete pulled a gun. He forced both girls into his van. May fought back, tried to protect Sarah. In the fight, Pete shot her. He says he didn't plan it, but he murdered her. And Sarah? He took Sarah to the basement, kept her drugged and tied up. He started filming her within a week. Mark felt like he was going to be sick. And May? He kept May's body in the bar's walk-in freezer for 2 years. Can you imagine serving customers, living his normal life with a murdered girl in his freezer? He only moved her when construction started on the building next door. He was afraid workers might need to get to shared utility lines. The Google car? Pure coincidence. The Street View car happened to drive by during the exact few minutes. He was moving May's body to his car to dump in the sewer system, he thought. He'd waited long enough. He thought the attention had died down. One picture ruined 6 years of careful planning. Mark felt sick, and Sarah, all this time. Rodriguez's face got even darker. This is where it gets worse. Pete had been filming Sarah's abuse. He's been selling sexual exploitation videos on the dark web for 6 years. He had a whole setup, cameras, lighting equipment. He made money off your daughter's pain. Mark rushed to a trash can, dry heaving. Rodriguez waited until he was done. "There's more," she said gently. Pete admitted he's done this before. "We found evidence of at least 3 other victims from before 2010, women who were never reported missing. Probably sex workers or homeless women. People he thought no one would look for. How many others are in that basement? We're still searching." He had several properties. Sarah was moved between places, kept in specially built rooms. The basement prison you saw was just one spot. He drugged her regularly to keep her under control. We're still figuring out all. The drugs? Mark thought of Sarah's empty eyes, her thin body. Why contact me? Why risk getting caught? Panic. When May's body was found, when he saw the news, he knew we'd eventually connect it to him. He thought he could control the investigation by giving you false information, by pretending to be helpful. He had avoided serious charges before, by manipulating people and lying. He thought he could do it again. A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Patel came in, holding a tablet. "Mr. Thompson, we've finished Sarah's first examination." Mark prepared himself. "How bad is it?" "Physically, she's not well fed and is missing multiple vitamins. We found high levels of tranquilizers, antipsychotics, and other sedatives in her system. She's been kept in a chemical fog for years. The good news is that with good food and medical care, her body can get better. And psychologically, Dr. Patel's face was sympathetic but honest. She's been severely traumatized and mentally manipulated. She shows signs of extreme conditioning. She asked for permission to use the bathroom, to eat, even to talk. She flinches at any sudden movement or sound. When we tried to examine her, she kept saying she'd be good, that she was sorry." Mark's eyes burned with tears. "Does she remember anything about before? Her memories are in pieces. Mr. Thompson, you need to understand." Pete told her over and over that her family had given up on her, that no one was looking for her. He even told her the world had ended, that there was a nuclear war, anything to keep her from trying to escape. "She's been living in a fake reality for 6 years, but she recognized me when I called her Sonny. That's a good sign." Deeply held memories, especially those connected to emotion, can survive even severe trauma. But her recovery will be long and hard. She'll need intense therapy, possibly for years. They went back to Sarah's room, where she was starting to wake up. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused from the drugs. When she saw Mark, she tensed up. "It's okay, Sonny," he said softly. "You're safe. You're in a hospital." Sarah's eyes darted around the room, looking at the medical machines, the window showing daylight, the clean sheets. Her voice, when she spoke, was a broken whisper. "This is real. This is real." "You're free." Detective Rodriguez stepped forward carefully. "Sarah, I'm Detective Rodriguez. We arrested Pete Garrison. He can't hurt you anymore. He's going to prison for the rest of his life." Sarah stared at her, then at Mark. Slowly, carefully, she reached out her hand. Mark took it gently, feeling how thin her fingers were, how delicate. "Did you?" Sarah struggled with the words. "Did you look for me?" "Every single day," Mark said, his voice breaking. "I never stopped looking. I never stopped hoping." Tears rolled down Sarah's hollow cheeks. He said, You didn't want me anymore. He lied, baby. He lied about everything. Rodriguez's phone buzzed. She stepped away to answer, then came back. Mark, we've contacted the Chens. We're sending officers to tell them that their daughter's killer has been caught. They wanted you to know they're grateful Sarah survived. What happens now? Mark asked. We continue to investigate his complex setup, the dark web sales. Pete wasn't working completely alone. We're tracking his connections, searching his properties. There might be other victims out there, other families who need answers. Mark looked at his daughter, 26 years old now, but broken in ways that made her seem both very old and like a child. 6 years of her life stolen. 6 years of torture that no amount of justice could fix. Sarah squeezed his hand weakly. Dad, will I get better? Dr. Patel answered gently. With time, treatment, and support, you can heal. It won't be easy, but you're strong. You survived something unimaginable. We'll do it together, Mark promised. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. You're not alone anymore. Sarah managed the faintest smile, barely there, but real. In that sterile hospital room, with the beeping of machines and the weight of unimaginable pain, it was enough. She was alive. She was free. The monster who had stolen her life was in jail. His victims finally counted. Their suffering finally known. Mark sat in that hospital room looking at Sarah, so different and older now. It's heartbreaking at how thin she was, how her eyes kept darting to the door as if she expected Pete to appear. He felt rage at the monster who had done this, huge. Gratitude that she was finally free, and desperate hope that someday, somehow, Tia's daughter would be able to heal from this nightmare.